Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Hello. Welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. I'm Maria Casillas, joined here by my incredible co-host, Cody Sizemore, and we are here to do a follow-up episode from one, I don't know how many weeks ago it was, but this is going to be a good one for you. Before we jump into that conversation, we just want to say thank you so much for tuning in today. We appreciate you. We look forward to bringing you the best content that we have in our back pockets for you today. And hopefully we are able to continue to hear back from you the way we have been through our Facebook, which is the Financial Coaches Community by New Money Habits, and also through messages and all sorts of ways that you can connect with us. We haven't asked in a long time for a review of this show. If you have a minute, would you mind just jumping down to wherever you listen to the show and give us one of those? We'd appreciate it. We love hearing your feedback. All right, Cody, I think that this is going to be a really great conversation because, as always, when you are willing to jump in and give us all of your dirty secrets, it ends up being a really great conversation. So today's going to be no exception to that. I'm going to ask for you to kind of lay the groundwork for the dirty secret you would like to share with us today. But with that dirty little secret comes some really valuable information on how you can prepare yourself for something so that you actually crush your consultations rather than having them be crushed. Take it away.
Yeah,
Cody.
so this is going to build off of an episode that was probably like 5 or 6 episodes back. So if you want to go back and listen to that one to kind of get like primed for it and then come back to listen to this again, I would recommend it. But that episode was persevering the ebbs and flows. And in that episode, I was kind of talking about how the beginning month or so of this year was really challenging for me because I took some time off to like spend with my family. Double-edged sword, I guess. And then, I kind of worked through that, got things kind of caught back up, and was just kind of talking about the experience of being in that ebb and what that felt like and what I, was thinking and what I had to do in order to get back into that flow state, right? Well, shortly after we recorded that episode, I hit another ebb, which is just kind of like, of course, right?
Of course,
it's the universe or God just trying to humble me a little bit, I guess. And this ebb was very challenging. In fact, I would even say that this first quarter of this year has probably been like the most challenging quarter I think I've had in like the last like 3 years kind of thing. Not for any one particular reason. It's just been a challenge, because after we recorded that episode, I had a number of consultations that I had, and I ended up not getting a handful of them right in a row, like 3 or 4 in a row. And then after that, I continued having some, and another 3 or 4 passed, and I still didn't get any new clients. And at that point, I was like, what the heck is going on? Because
that's new for you.
Yeah. Because, I had like 7 or 8 in a row that told me no, which is not normal for me. I usually get like, I would say like 30 or 40% of my consultations, I convert them into clients. So it's a very large number in a row to experience on my end, to where I'm like, what is happening kind of thing. And I will tell you this, that, the first handful of them, I was kind of like, okay, it is what it is. And then when it got to like, number 5, number 6, number 7, I had noticed that my mind and my feelings started to change a little bit as I was going into those calls, to where it was almost kind of like I was telling myself like, oh, here we go again. I'm ready to get hurt again, like that kind of thing. And I really think that not the main reason as to why I didn't get those clients, but definitely a big reason was because I was going into those consultations with that kind of mindset of like, I'm ready to get hurt again. My energy was just not the same. I probably was even like manifesting, just not getting these clients. And I really do think that that was a big reason as to why those clients didn't convert. So I tried something new to change that game a little bit, and it ended up working really well. But I think that before we go into that,
Perfect.
I know you, Maria. I know you. I know you want to say something.
I just want to commend you for recognizing a pattern and doing something to disrupt that pattern. That's all. I just wanted our listeners to hear that. I'm sure they did. But just to reiterate that when we recognize that there is a pattern that is not serving us well, then it is our job to come in and disrupt that pattern. It would have been very easy for you to turn into, woe is me, I'm a victim of circumstance, and just they're just not the right clients. Or I'm just not marketing right. You decided that there was something you could do to change up how you show up for these consultations. And so I just wanted to say that before you share what it is that you did differently.
Yeah, because you have to.
I have to.
That's right. Well, I'm saying like people in general.
I know. I'm just
need
kidding.
to, right? Like if there's a pattern that's not serving you, like after so much time, like you need to take a step back and be like, why is this not serving me?
And yet so many people don't.
Right.
That's what I'm saying to you, is that so many people, because change is hard, disrupting our negative thoughts is hard. And so many people say, well, it must be something else, the universe is against me, or it's their problem, whatever. You took ownership of that. And I just wanted to say, well done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So I'll kind of shift into what I did differently.
Please.
And I actually did two things, but there's one in particular I really want to focus on. So the first thing I did was I actually wrote myself a letter, and I dated it to be read basically a month from the day that I wrote it. So I haven't read it yet. It's still, I think I have like 3 weeks left before I read it.
Okay.
But that letter was in a place of basically like writing it to my future self, and being in the shoes of my future self, right? And I put a lot of emphasis on just writing in the perspective of like gratitude, of like, like, hey, I've been able to do this, I've been able to do that. This is how this is looking. This is how I'm feeling. I'm really grateful for this. And because of this, I've been able to, accomplish this, and I've been able to do that, and all those kinds of stuff, right? So that was one thing that I did.
That's cool.
To which, when I read that, I'm excited to see how things go.
Yeah, we're going to make him read it right here on the air, you guys. I'm just kidding, Cody.
Sure.
The look on your face is like, what?
So that was one thing. But the other thing, this is the one I really want to focus on. And it goes back to me recognizing how I was going into those calls with the last few consultations that didn't end up converting. And that was the whole like, woe was me, I'm ready to get hurt again, all that kinds of stuff, right? I recognized that was a big problem for me, because with me having that mindset and those emotions around that mindset, it did cause me to show up a little bit differently. I could feel it in my voice, how I was saying things, what I was saying, with the energy that I was saying them with, all that kinds of stuff. So I was like, I need to address this one thing. So what I ended up doing for my next 2 consultations that I've had since then, and I have one literally as soon as I'm done with this podcast episode, and then also one Thursday and one Friday and one Monday as well. So I'll be doing with all of those, right? But I essentially said I need to hype myself up. I need to warm up, because I'm a sports guy. You know that I'm a really big Detroit Lions fan. And it doesn't matter if it's football or any other sport, but any sport that people play, you will see that the players before the game, they do what? Warm up. Right. They don't just like put their cleats on and then say, all right, it's game time. No, like they take a specific amount of time, and they're really focused on priming themselves, on, getting their muscles loose, working on their breathing exercises. They're hyping themselves up for the game, like all these types of things. And I was like, why am I not doing that for my own game, which would be the consultation, right? So I just decided I'm going to warm up with this. And just to kind of give you like a little bit of an insight of what my warm up kind of looks like, I will take 10 minutes before the call actually begins. And for the first 5 minutes, I just pray over the consultation. I pray for myself. But then I also pray for the person I'm going to be talking to as well. And I'll say things like, I pray that, I understand them and that they feel understood. I pray that I'm able to say things to them that motivates them, inspires them, gets them operating from a place of courage and hope. All those different types of things. And I also say, hey, thank you for everything that you've done, everything that you're doing, and everything that you're going to do as well. So I just take 5 minutes to pray for myself, to thank God, and then to also pray over the person that I'm about to speak to as well. Mm-hmm. And in the next 5 minutes, I get out of my like tranquility place and I go into just like
blast music,
dude, just straight up, like just full out energy. So I'll throw my AirPods in and I'll like throw on like that cinematic motivation, like movie music. You know what I'm talking about? Like that, like that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. With like the big, like all kinds of stuff, right? So I'll throw that in there, and then I'll
be deaf in 4 years,
and I will just start like throwing my hands up in the air. I'll be like, punching my hand, pounding my chest, kicking the air, and just saying things like, "You're gonna crush it, Cody. You're gonna show up with so much energy, and you're gonna get this client, and you're gonna serve them so well, and they're gonna be so inspired, and everything's gonna turn around for them, and like all those kinds of stuff, right? Like, and I just say whatever's on my heart over and over and over and over and over for about 5 minutes until I feel just like completely full of energy. I'm like ecstatic to have this phone call versus, being anxious about having this phone call, all that kinds of stuff. And even like right now, like as I'm just like talking about it, like I'm showing more energy, right? Like, and that's like a perfect example, right? But like just doing that, if I were to just like exit that kind of state and then literally 10 seconds later, I press dial and that person answers that phone.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to show up with that same state?
No. I'm kidding.
Yeah. No, Maria, with that same state, right? And that's the state that allows me to speak to them the way that they need to be spoken to understand them the way that they need to be understood, to hear them the way that they need to be heard, and then to motivate them and inspire them to make this next step in their lives, which can be intimidating, but to operate it from a place of courage so that they step forward, not only to just become a client of mine, but to truly change their life. So after I did that, I'm pleased to tell you that my next two consultations ended up converting into clients. Mm-hmm. Shocker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, energy is transferable. And so I think that the reason that you could do all of those things for that individual, show, like you said, show up the way they need to be heard and understand and all that stuff, is because your energy was able to be transferred to them. Mm-hmm. And so they were able to show up with a little bit more energy, even if it's not like they might go, where did this even come from? Like I was showing up a little bit wonky when I, answered the phone, but this is kind of, I'm a little bit more upbeat. And I think that's exactly why. And it's also why, if someone showed up to your consultation ready to sign with you because they've watched you on TikTok, they've watched you on Instagram, they've been like following you for a long time. And they're like, I'm ready to go with this guy. And then you show up without that energy, it actually can drain their energy as well. And then they're like, never mind. He wasn't worth the oats, they don't know the truth about it. But that's the energy part of that. So I think that that's probably why that happens with you. So yes, no shocker there. Great job.
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to talk about this today, not only because it's an experience I had, But I also think, I don't just think, I know that a lot of us coaches have that anxiety around having a consultation in general because we don't want to get hurt. It's a lot of pressure. Like, we want to help these people. We want to onboard a new client. Maybe it's our first client. Maybe it's our 10th client. Maybe it's our 100th client. But that anxiety of like, all right, I really want to get this is usually always there, right? No matter how much you're making or how long you've been doing it, there'll always be a level of that whenever you go into a consultation call. So just doing this one thing, I really feel is a really good way to just dismantle and dissipate a lot of that anxiety and instead install, empowerment, install just like this, like ecstatic state of being. And because of that, then the clients that you're talking to on the other side of the phone will then also feel ecstatic and empowered.
Yeah, I agree. And I've heard it said once, Cody, that anxiety and gratitude can't live in the same space. And what I find very interesting is that, you spent that first 5 minutes in prayer, but specifically in prayer for not just their well-being, but in gratitude for what has already been. And the letter that you wrote to yourself was very much in a state of gratitude. So I think that's really great. I think it's probably one of the reasons that some of this is working for you. I would also like to say that, you've hit 2 out of 2 since doing that. And I hope that your streak continues. There is the reality, though, that just because you do this doesn't necessarily mean that that person's always going to sign on. And
Correct.
so I'm not saying that for your sake so much as I am for the sake of our listeners, that this is a really great step. There are other things that still need to be in place for that individual to be ready and all of that. Right. The reason I bring that up, though, is because even if they don't, if you are in a state of gratitude, it's going to be very difficult for you to be anxious about that individual, whether or not they sign up. And so when they say no, you have more of that mentality of, okay, who's next?
Right.
That wasn't the right fit. There's somebody else, and go find that person, rather than, I guess I wasn't the right one for them. And it's just completely different reaction.
Yeah. And even like part of the prayer that I say is like, allow them to take this step if it's the best for them and me. Right. Yeah. Which basically like surrenders the outcome. Right.
That's right.
Because you're right. Like, I'm not going to be 100% moving forward. And I can't allow, 1 or 2 people saying no to then take me back into that woe was me kind of state of mind. Right. So I think that it's just a process of, like you mentioned, like gratitude and empowerment to basically eliminate that anxiety, regardless if they say yes or no. So yeah, it's good. Cool. So my big suggestion to you guys is if you're, feeling the anxiety around having consultation calls, maybe you're even in your own little bit of an ebb with your consultations or with your business as a whole, try this out. It's going to feel weird the first time that you do it. And if you have, people at home that, they might hear you in your office or wherever you're kind of like working out of, they might think that you're crazy or that you're weird. Cool. Let them just do it, give it a shot. And the more that you end up doing it, the more natural it will start to feel. And then obviously, the more natural that it starts to feel, the more natural the clients will then convert as well. So give it a shot. Don't hold back, and just let it all out. Let it all out, baby.
I could just picture some of our coaches who are like in these high-rise apartments and they're starting to blast their music and dance, and their neighbors are pounding on their walls like, shut up in there. But Cody told me to do this. I love it. Well, thank you as always for allowing us to peel back the curtain on what's going on behind the scenes for you and just some of the things that you try and are working, and, just the vulnerability that you bring is always very, very helpful to our listeners. I'm sure of it.
Absolutely. Not a problem.
All right. Well, you guys, thanks so much for tuning in today. We are really grateful for you. We are very much looking forward to seeing you next week for another episode of the Financial Coaches Podcast. Until then, have a great one.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching.